Funding for NotAVampyre is provided by viewers like you. Find perks and tiers at patreon.com/NotAVampyre. Thank you. I was one of the people who was skeptical about Steven Universe feature before it premiered. Hell, I was skeptical before the Steven Universe movie, and the film only continued my concern for the future of the show. My issue was, what were the crystal gems going to do now that the war was all over? All of the diamonds are no longer evil and gave up all their colonies, and gems around the galaxy could live in peace. How would the show move on if it doesn't end with the big bad defeated? Were there suddenly going to be bigger and stronger bads to fight like as expected in shonen action anime? And if so, how would they explain the almighty diamonds not being around to just resolve every battle instantly? Frankly, I was getting flashbacks to Witch and how it just bubbled the supposedly most powerful person on tap for an entire season to give the main five an actual challenge. And it looked like Steven Universe Future was headed this way with the coincidental absence of the diamonds for most of the movie. But thankfully that's not the case. Instead, Steven Universe Future focuses on my favorite aspect of the Steven Universe show, the personal development in seemingly trivial episodes. I adore moments when the fighting is paused or used as a footnote or device for development rather than as an action set piece. Those quiet and slice of life issues that we face every day says a lot about the people involved, because who you are at home and in war can have great variations. It's also when you're away from the fighting that you get to process what needs to be shelved in high adrenaline instances. But instead of exploring and developing the townies in between fights, Steven Universe Future's main focus is Steven himself. For once, he's not just sitting in lulls before the next attack or waiting for the next phase of the war. History is mostly out in the open, and there aren't major revelations to be learned or enemies to defeat. Now it's just a matter of living. Things come up from time to time, such as old war grudges like with Ruby and Aquamarine, but they're not constant like they used to be. Sure, we experienced 5 seasons of Steven Universe over the course of about 7 years, but for the characters involved, it's only been 2 years at most for the original series, and then a 2-year time skip in between that and the Steven Universe movie. War, danger, and galaxy-destroying threats have been a constant for Steven, even before he took gem stuff seriously. By the sheer fact that he was involved with the crystal gems, he didn't get to have a normal childhood. Though they initially tried to keep him away from their gem-related duties, Steven being around meant that he was going to be involved one way or another, and regardless of if he was ready for it. And the gems weren't really equipped to help Steven emotionally. Each of them were still struggling with thousands of years old trauma and angst, and by the time Steven turned 13, they still didn't know much about humans. They couldn't really understand how everything Steven was experiencing might affect his overall mental health. Not to mention, when you're in the thick of constant danger, your check to see how okay a person is will be different. Functional becomes fine because the focus is on getting through another day and living through to the next fight. There's no time to process everything. You just need to keep moving. And then even after the war is won, they're still rebuilding, so you're not done yet. It's only when everyone else has moved on and life is claiming to return to be normal that you can finally confront everything that has been shelved for you to survive. But how do you do that? How do you deal with things you've learned ought to be put out of mind? When compartmentalizing is your go-to solution for everything, eventually there won't be enough space to put more bottled emotions and you'll be at a loss for what to do with them. Just moving on sounds like the easy solution, but the unaddressed emotions still remain and begin to boil as new problems come up. Like, say, what's your purpose after the war? Who are you now after everything you've seen? Who were you before, and why can't you just be that again? Why does it seem so easy for everyone else to just be normal when you can't even figure out what normal is anymore? Was being the son of Rose and Pink Diamond the only thing Steven had going for him? Where in the world does a half-gem, half-human belong? How do you live when your one purpose for years has been fixing the mess your mom made? What's wrong with you? What's even worse is that Steven's 16 now. He's at an age that's already filled with existential crises over finding a role to play in the grand scheme of the universe that obvious PTSD doesn't help. On top of all that, he doesn't know how to ask for help. People who used to be his support system feel distant. Either they have their own lives to attend to, or Steven doubts how helpful they can be. He feels like everything is futile. There's no winning move. Depression brain has taken over and convinced him that there are no options. He's all alone this one because his inability to move on has made everyone he loves leave him behind. Of course, there's still people who care about him and who are ready to help him to his feet, like the Crystal Gems or his dad, but Steven can't perceive them that way. Instead, he knows there's something really wrong with him, but can't seem to fix it. Nothing works, particularly because he can't address the issue at hand. It's not something he can do on his own, and the solution isn't something as simple as getting away from little homeschool. The problems he's facing need a direct confrontation, nothing roundabout or tangentially related. It's kind of like Steven is trying to put a band-aid on a frostbite. Maybe it'll help a little, but it's not what will heal the injury. Thing is, Steven needs a Steven. For the whole show, he's acted as everyone else's counselor. He worked with each character to inspire emotional growth and healing, but he can't really do the same for himself, and everyone else is used to him being fine. Being the emotionally mature one who sometimes just needs time alone or a gentle guiding hand. Steven's not really had someone to fill the role in his own life that he has in others' lives, so he doesn't really consider turning to anyone else to process what's going on inside. Not to mention, Steven rejects the notion that he's in need of emotional support to begin with. Working through traumatic baggage is hard and off-putting, so when Steven would reach out for help, it's always for something physical. To relieve pent-up anger through fighting, to treat his mutations and emotional instability as another gem power issue. Because the implication of his troubles being something other than physical is too much. It suggests that there's nothing tangible to even fix. And because he's refusing help from those who are supposed to be his support system, if Steven can't fix himself on his own, then everything seems hopeless. It further reinforces the idea that Steven isn't helpful anymore and he has no place in this new world. I'm glad the show has taken this direction. There is so much that Steven, the gems, and we as the audience have taken for granted. We've all let these obviously trauma-inducing events pass because Steven seemed okay. There were moments where he clearly was in distress, but we've trusted the characters when they said that everything was fine after the episode was done. We shared in this hope because logic would reason that everything would be sorted once the central conflict was over. But life doesn't work that way, and neither does the show, because even after the diamonds are no longer a threat, there's still the pain Steven went through to get to that point. Even when an earthquake has passed, there's still aftershocks. Happily ever after is just what we assume comes after times of hardship without really considering the work needed to get to that point. And it doesn't help that most of our stories end at the suggestion of a happy ending now that the central conflict is wrapped up. Truth is, we're still learning that not everything is done after the narrator reads the end. And we're still sorting out how people can find happily ever after in the conclusion of traumatic events. Whatever you may say about how the series ended the war or where the diamonds stand, it can't be ignored how it's using these points to move forward. To show that there's always an afterword to every conflict, and that while big action pieces are often the most interesting aspects to a narrative, they aren't necessarily the portion that needs the most attention. Welcome to quarantine day 3, 4, I don't know, because on top of staying home for a couple days now, I also am on a very weird sleep schedule. Basically, my roommate got the virus, Tarba got the virus, Mask was showing symptoms too, and now I'm just sort of waiting to see if I get it too. I intend to keep making videos in the meantime, but we'll see how that goes. One positive thing about the virus, though, was that I got to do 3 days straight of playing the PCP dating sim. Where did I do that, you say? Well, I did that right here on YouTube. I stream basically every other week, doing video game streams or whatever. I read Choose Your Own Adventure book once. And then on the off weeks, I do a watch-along of whatever movie we feel like watching that week. We stream that through Discord, so if you want to get in on that, or maybe talk to me about whatever people want to talk to me about, check out this Discord invite link. There you'll also find a content stream of the things that I am involved with and that I make. It's where I recommend people keep up with my stuff because YouTube has very firmly decided I only make Degrassi videos, and that also no one cares about my videos, so it doesn't even push them. And if you want to help me continue making videos and turn this into my main job, then check me out at patreon.com/NotAVampyre. You also get some pretty nice perks for supporting me, like you could have seen this video 2 days in advance, or you can listen to my NotAVampyre Lately podcast where I go into more detail about what the hell's going on in my life. And of course, on Twitter at NotAVampyre. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and until next time.